Reassurance is a concept that can apply both to conventional or to nuclear capabilities. If you want to reassure your ally, you need to be able to tell them that you are ready to use nuclear weapons if their vital interests are threatened. This is the so-called nuclear umbrella. There is an American nuclear umbrella to NATO. There is a British nuclear umbrella to NATO. France does not offer a nuclear umbrella, but it's part also of the nuclear reassurance. In NATO, in the Atlantic Alliance, there is a very particular component of reassurance, which is the physical presence of American nuclear weapons on the continent. The Americans are of two minds. They want to confirm the pivot to Asia, the rebalancing to Asia. They want to tell the Europeans, it's your show, it's your call, it's your turn. But at the same time, the Eastern Europeans want a serious American guarantee, want a confirmation of the American guarantee. Reassurance is often about psychology. It's like deterrence. The personality of the American president is an important component of reassurance. So far, he has not done a very good job at reassuring allies. In the Ukrainian crisis, there have been talk of more American permanent deployment in Eastern Europe. That would be an important reassurance message for the Poles, for the Baltic states. But the means don't really matter. What matters is whatever the means you use, did you manage to convince your partner, your ally, that you are serious about protecting them? So this reassurance component, both in the conventional and nuclear field, is at least as important and perhaps more important than deterrence per se. Reassurance is about convincing your allies that you will be there, if need be. Deterrence is about convincing your adversary that you will be there for your allies. And reassurance is often as difficult as deterrence.
Reassurance is a word that that became in usage some 5 years ago in the wake of the war between Georgia and Russia. Essentially, it means all the political and military measures that would have to be implemented by Western European states and North American states to reassure the members of NATO that stand at the eastern border that they would be defended in case of attack. Normally, reassurance should be self-evident, since Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty guarantees that an attack against a member state of NATO is an attack against all. At the political level, there has been a lack of unity, which is worrying to Eastern members. Also, at the military level, the past 20 years have been devoted to crisis management. So what has been emphasized is light troops for stabilization operations, whether in Afghanistan, in Kosovo, in Bosnia. Now, the capabilities that are required for those expeditionary missions are not necessarily the ones that you would need to ensure collective defense. Defense budgets were cut following the end of the Cold War quite clearly. Second, we had to modernize to cope with the rhythm of innovation, the pace of innovations, especially coming from the United States, the so-called revolution in military affairs. So to pay for that with shrinking budgets, what most European countries did was to shrink their militaries. So essentially what the European states did was to trade off quantity for quality. So for instance, the UK shrank their forces by 2/3 in 20 years. We lack the numbers, the raw numbers to do proper collective defense, and also we lack some of the capabilities that were generally seen as legacy systems, meaning inherited from the Cold War and no longer useful in the post-Cold War era. For instance, heavy ground forces. All of these would have to be reconstituted to some extent if we are serious about reassurance and collective defense. In that respect, the crisis in Ukraine should compel NATO members to become serious again on collective defense and reassurance. We have to stop first the decline of defense budget. It's quite clear that we won't be able to defend the borders of Europe and NATO without some significant investments again. Poland and Turkey would be the two main land forces, are the two main land forces today in Europe. Obviously, there is also a sea and an air dimension, and here probably the French come on top today. But it won't be true in another 10 years because of the reductions that are being implemented now in that trade-off between quantity and quality those capabilities that needed to be sacrificed in a way to become more expeditionary, they will be very hard to reconstitute. Not everyone has to reconstitute everything, but we better coordinate how we do it, how we organize that build-up in the future.